Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable, on the Facebook event page for episode 202, the Noble Order of the Muscovites, or in the YouTube chat running alongside this YouTube video. As for introductions, my name is John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, in Fairfax, Virginia. And next up for introductions is Robert Johnson. Who are you?
I'm Robert Johnson, past master Waukegan Lodge number 78, current sitting secretary, and the host of Whence Came You Masonic Podcast.
Never heard of it.
I know it's not very big, but
next up, Jason Richards.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Jason Richards here, past master of Acacia Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, and member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C.
Hoorah. Next up, Mike the Intern.
Hey, Mike Hambrecht here of the Junior Steward and Lodge Education Officer at Triandria number 780 and Village Lodge number 274 in Burton, Ohio.
Awesome. And as you can see, we have not one, but two special guests for tonight. And so I'll hand it off first to Seth Anthony for his introduction. If he looks familiar, because he's been on before. Seth, introduce yourself.
Good evening, everybody. Seth Anthony, past master Abraham C. Treichler Lodge number 682 in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, and here in my role as Imperial Governor for the Eastern Provinces of the Noble Order of Muscovites.
Wow. All right. We'll talk about that tonight. And last but certainly not least, Jason Lewis.
Hello, everybody. Jason Lewis, Lodge number 43 in Lancaster, PA, where I am senior deacon. Also co-host of Masonic Lite Podcast, but most importantly tonight, the Royal Outer Guard of Kremlin Penza of the Noble Order of Muscovites.
Yeah, I've heard of the Masonic Lite Podcast. This whence came somebody, I don't know. Masonic Lite, much better.
it is. It's much higher quality. The guests are better. The hosts are pretty much amazing, and all around, it's amazing. It's an amazing program.
They put a lot of work into every episode.
Go ahead, Seth.
I'm pretty sure they put a lot of pre-work into every episode. Very well planned out.
Oh, yeah.
Months in advance.
Post-production is amazing, too. And I hear that they have guests like on their show, and they'll record like an hour with a guest and condense all of that guest down to like 2 minutes for the episode.
We're not so good on the Hangouts, so...
We love you anyway. All right. First up for Masonic news this week, you guessed it. If you weren't tired of celebrating the 300th anniversary of Freemasonry, you can celebrate for the rest of your life by ordering your very own copy of the TMR 300th Celebration Commemorative Patent by artist Ryan J. Flynn. So own a piece of history by going over to thewindingstairs.com. Next up, we also have an article from, of course, Chris Hodap's blog talking about the United Grand Lodge of England responding to the attacks in The Guardian. Now, last week we did mention about a couple of articles.
Like 4.
Yeah, not just
an op-ed.
About the spooky Freemasons once again rolling up their trouser legs and giving secret handshakes to conspire to do something. To which, right before we aired yesterday, or last week, the Grand Lodge of England took out an entire full-page ad in The Guardian stating, enough is enough. Let's see, do we have a picture here? There we go. What do you guys think about this? Is it time for Freemasons, or at least the Grand Lodge of England, to speak out?
I think it's completely stupid that the UGLE decided they had to do this. I think the UGLE has been very interested in, cleaning up the public image, as it were, of Freemasonry in Britain. They had the Sky One documentary where they actually invited news teams last year into their lodges and showed them, the rituals and everything. I think I think the UGLE just kind of cares a little bit too much about the public face of Freemasonry in this regard.
So I think what's interesting about the entire deal is that it's largely like almost everywhere this has been shared on social media. There are tons of dudes who have a huge problem with this article, with the fact that they did this. But I think that comes off, in my opinion, it comes off not thinking about those bros. So over there, it's a different game, and they're not like it is. So it's yeah, we're a part of the same fraternity, but it's not the same. I mean, their Scottish Rite goes up to the 18th degree. If they come here, they can't even watch higher degrees. Like, they take things, I think it's a little bit more serious over there. It's a lot more secret. And because of that, I feel like they're trying to somehow, make their public image better. And they've been doing it for years. There's if our brothers in France, right? I've heard several times that there's at least one time a year a major publication puts out some sort of like Masonic Illuminati article that brings bad attention to the Masonic fraternity. Euro Masonry is so much different, and what our brothers go through over there, I think, is a lot, stranger of a experience than what we get here. Here, we're like Americana, this whole like thing that we do. We're out, we join all of the groups, and there's not a lot of practical study behind things. It's out in the open. We push things all on charity, and so. For us, I think our reputation here is, who are those guys? They're still around, or, oh yeah, they raised some money. True story. 3 or 4 weeks back, maybe, I don't know. That's a lie. Maybe like 4 months ago. Sorry. There was a parade where we had our local Masons, and they were in the parade, just dressed in aprons and stuff. And the guy announcing the parade said, "Hey, there's the Masons. I don't know what they do, but they sure do sell some good onions." Like, that's America's perception. And I think that's why we might think it's stupid to have to address things like that. But I don't know. Right. I'm just one dude.
Yeah, but even when I saw them address stuff, I mean, because I watched the interview, and I'm like, the guy addressed things, but the lady from the Guardian was sitting there saying that they're keeping secrets. They don't let us come into their meetings, and all this stuff. And yet he sits there and goes, "Well, nothing's really secret," and blah blah. But he doesn't even sit there and go, "Look, it's no more secret than Coca-Cola not letting you into their board meeting." He doesn't use logic in any of his argument. It's all just, well, wait a minute, we're really not doing anything. So, yeah, that was my complaint about him and the whole idea. So
despite and how it was delivered, I'm kind of on the foresight. I think it's good that they're taking a stand, right? That as the fraternity, I mean, they are the public eye of the fraternity, both in England and around the world. And while it could have been handled a bit better, they probably could use some, a couple new PR people. I mean, who reads newspapers anymore? But just the fact that they're saying, "Look, okay, we're done with it. The jokes got old, 100 years ago. We've been open and honest about everything. We're not the Italian, P2 type Mason." So I would like to see this beginning of a conversation rather than just a one-pager that people see the headline and then move on. So I would do things differently, but I applaud them for taking a stand, for trying to set the record straight. Now, of course, you're not going to sell everyone over. I mean, we've got our share of conspiracy theorists and Bible thumpers and everything that have tried to, attack us personally just for running this show. But, I think that with the weight and gravitas that they have at the Grand Lodge of England, I think it's about time. So we'll see.
I think what the other, area of that's kind of interesting is that over there, I don't know. I think here in the United States, we feel like UGLE is probably bigger than it is seen to be over there also. Second thought is, what if they get a boom in membership?
Are you a believer of there's no such thing as bad press?
I mean, there's definitely bad press. Yeah. No, I don't believe there's no such thing as bad press. There's bad press.
But just the air of like spooky conspiracy.
Spooky conspiracy type stuff. Look, I don't think there's maybe there's no bad press in that area. If it comes to criminal activity, that's different. But we don't have criminal activity. I mean, unless we're covering up the Titanic.
Right. All right, let's get into the next stage of Masonic news, which is AMD Week recap. Yes, we've been talking about that for quite a while. Let's do just a quick overview before we get into tonight's topic of some of the other things that we saw, heard, and did during AMD Week. So I know that Jason and I were there on Thursday night. Oh, and Hammy.
Mike was too.
Just not allowed to go to some of the degrees we went to.
No, I had to sit outside.
You had to join a council or politely be invited to a council. Where Jason and I attended the
Royal Ark Mariner.
Royal Ark Mariner and St. Lawrence the Martyr.
Yep.
Degrees. I understand some of the degree teams only had less than a week to put that together.
Some of them had less than an hour, actually.
So
that sounds Masonic.
Yeah.
Just like in real life.
Par for the course. Hey, can you do this lecture? No, but I'll learn it.
Some of the degree team members could have used to have borrowed some props from the Muscovites.
So they did as well as they could given the circumstances. I didn't know that a local council here in Northern Virginia was planning on doing the Royal Ark Mariner degree, and most of the line got the flu. So yeah, really, not much you can do to prepare for that. And then Saturday morning, Jason, Hammy, and I also went over and had breakfast at the beautiful Hyatt Regency Hotel near the Reagan National Airport to have a podcast crossover breakfasty kind of thing with Ex Oriente and Eric Diamond.
And Fratero of Whence Came You.
There you go. So WCY was representing. Even though Robert didn't want to go into town.
Yeah, so it was like, go to Dallas for a national sales meeting for work or AMD Week.
Gotta get paid.
Gotta get paid, yeah.
So Jason, Hammy, what'd you think of the breakfast with the bros?
I thought it was awesome. I had a great time with that. Talk to Fratero and you guys, and definitely for a first actual face-to-face meeting with Eric Diamond, that was really awesome. So yeah, it was great. I had a lot of fun doing that.
Eric brought all of his electronic paraphernalia, and hope to see that soon in an upcoming episode of Ex Oriente.
Yeah, no, it was a good conversation, good discussion. It was just a nice time. I've said my favorite part of Masonic Week is getting to spend 3 hours with Eric Diamond in conversation, which was a lot of fun. Almost as fun as talking to Joe Wages, by the way, who is absolutely hilarious in person.
So that's a good segue into who are some of the other Masons that you got to hang out with, talk to, and just enjoy fraternal company with.
So Joe Wages was elected the newest Blue Friar for this year, so he was in town for this. He, of course, we had him on the show for episode 31, our Illuminati episode. He has since published the book, The Secret School of Wisdom, and which is a publication of the original rituals, translated rituals of the Bavarian Illuminati. And we got to hang out with him quite a bit over the course of Saturday. and he is absolutely hilarious to talk to. Really, really great guy. We got to talk to Mark Tabbert as well.
Yes, Mark was fun. Yeah.
And who's Mark?
Mark Tabbert is the what is his official title?
I believe he's like the custodian of the library of the George Washington Masonic Memorial and all around George Washington expert.
Yes.
He's written some of the premier books on George Washington's life and his Masonic life as well.
And of course, we got to see Edgar Alejandro from Masonic Revival and Carl Hearn from Ascended Masters Clothing. That was actually the first time I've ever met Carl.
Nice
Yeah.
hat. Nice
I
hat.
bought out like his entire store.
Especially
Carlos
sold out
Hernandez.
hats.
He's a really cool dude. It's always awesome to hang out and talk with him. He, like, if you can peel him away from business for a minute, because people are always like, it's like you're trying to have a conversation and he's like transaction after transaction, and yeah, he's awesome.
One thing I liked about his entrepreneurship is he was in it to win it. He was there all day, every day for the entire show, because there were some vendors that were just, folding the cloth over their table and they'd leave. And he's like, nope, I'm going to be here all the way through Sunday. And he was definitely hustling. So I got to give him props for being there and showing up. So good for that. Piers Vaughn was also there, who's written a few books. He has his own publishing company called the Rose Circle Press. You like esoterics and you like some of the Rosicrucian-y side of things, he is certainly your go-to guy. Every time
a Royal Arch book from him too. So
yes, the capitular degree correspondence course program. Think Master Craftsman program, but for York Rite. Amazing stuff. Just all around awesome guy. And I think in like a 5-minute conversation I had with him, he was just pulling references out of thin air that I'll still be working on until like I talk to him a year from now on just trying to decipher what
And his English accent, of course, helps.
oh, without a doubt, it sells
He
it.
just sound like he could say whatever, and it just sounds like smart.
Right.
Speaking of English accents, also ran into brother Andrew Hammer for a hot second.
You did. Okay.
Yep.
Did he use his fake English accent, or did he just talk normal? I'm just kidding, Andy.
I can't tell the difference.
I love you, Andy.
But I
Yeah,
tried
I
to
thought
speak with a
about-
Russian accent during the Muscovite degree and failed miserably. So
You failed? You're like a sleeper. Disappointing, especially since you're our Russian Freemasonry guy.
I know.
Yeah. So
You get a pass.
but yeah, lots of good stuff. Saw Oscar Arlene there. He was too busy running around. I didn't get a chance to really say hi to him too long. But yeah, I mean that's really the beauty of Masonic Week, is not so much some of the degrees you can't get into, but more importantly,
Most of the degrees you can't get into.
hanging out with some awesome guys. And Hammy, I mean, not being an AMD member, can you confirm that? Is that a true statement?
That is a true statement. I couldn't get into anything there really, but it was really fun to hang out and get to meet some brothers who I've heard a lot about, but never actually met in person until then. So
Like this Jason Lewis guy or the Seth.
yeah, that was a really cool time.
Oh yeah, they were there too, weren't they?
Yeah.
It's a good segue into
Forget these things.
what were they? Jason Lewis.
Oh, other Jason.
Yeah, AMD week was fun. Hammy, I'm right there with you. I couldn't do much other than confer the degree that we were down there for, but got to meet a handful of the same brothers you were talking about. But the Muscovites was where it was at for me.
I can confirm. So that's a good segue into tonight's topic, which is the Noble Order of Muscovites. And so Seth Anthony, with his huge head, is going to fill us in of knowledge, is going to fill us in on the history of this noble order where it came from, how it was able to be slipped into Masonic Week, and just a little bit of background of what this whole order is. Take it away.
Yeah, so I started my background research, whatever you want to call it, with the Muscovites back in 2009 or 2010 when I stumbled across one of their old fezzes with another collector that I know. And we had this moment of, what the hell is this? Where all of those degrees that coalesced in the 1870s and 80s that were fun degrees took on this Middle Eastern faux Arabic theme. This group took on a Russian theme for no apparent reason that we can find other than they liked it. So the history that we know, in 1893, a bunch of oddfellows in Cincinnati, Ohio, a little town called Queen City, just outside of Cincinnati, started meeting and decided they were going to form this group that was Russian in origin. And within 6 months, they'd propped themselves up as the Supreme Kremlin, as you do. Because what happens when you grab 80 guys and pull them together? Well, we've got to have a structure and a government and make ourselves the most important guys in the room.
Former Grand Lodge.
So that's what, exactly. So that's what they did. They then started to expand, and over the course of the next 10 years or so, managed to prop up a bunch of other Kremlins. That's the name for the local body. So like you have a lodge, they have a Kremlin. They expanded from Cincinnati up to Cleveland, and then managed to make their way out to Topeka, Kansas, of all places, which is really where they became successful and took a foothold, was in the Midwest and the upper Midwest over the next 30 or 40 years. So I'd spent all this time researching the Imperial Order of Muscovites. I got my hands on some period documents that are, I don't know if there's any other copies floating around out there. I'm sure there must be, but they're pretty rare, that explains their view of their history and what happened to them. Long story short, with the Imperial Order, they managed to survive into the 1930s, being banned by the Oddfellows in some places and lots of other problems, but died out in the Depression because of all the issues that happened there.
So what do you think caused some of that dying off?
A couple of things. Embezzlement was a big part of it. A guy embezzled about a quarter of their total funds at one point. And then they were placed in receivership. The state took some of their funds over. The next Grand Secretary decided to build himself a wonderful lake house and compound in Spirit Lake, Iowa, using their money, which he was going to use to be the headquarters of the group. But of course, that lasted about 3 or 4 years, and they were out of money and out of business.
And he just went ahead and kept the property to
save,
yeah, the court fees and whatnot. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you do.
Seems legit.
Yeah, so in the meantime of all this, and this is kind of where the Noble Order of Muscovites comes from, what we didn't know up until about 2015 was that a group in Oregon, mainly in the Portland area, but also up into Washington State, had seceded from the Imperial Order of Muscovites, propped themselves up as the Improved Order of Muscovites, kept the ritual, and decided to continue to operate however they felt like. In all of our research, they never came up because they had changed their name. So in 2015, I get a call from a friend of mine who's very involved in the Oddfellows, who was visiting Oregon, and said, "You're not going to believe this. I found a living member of the Muscovites."
No way.
Yeah, said, "Absolutely, this is impossible. I have all the documentary evidence. The state shut them down in 1934. It's not possible." But lo and behold, this group in Oregon had existed. We had no idea they were out there. And they'd managed to keep themselves functioning up into the mid-1960s. And this fella he had met was in his late 80s and had been initiated into the Muscovites in the 1960s as a young man. And this fellow went on to be a Grand Master of Oddfellows in Oregon and very prominent. And they connected with him, and he still had in the back of the lodge room the ritual book and all the stuff about how the Muscovites operated. So his dying... Yeah.
How do we know the ritual is the similar ritual to the Imperial Order?
So the ritual they had was actually stamped Imperial Order of Muscovites. They'd never published their own ritual. They just kept using the original.
Wow.
Okay, that seems legit.
Yeah. So the ritual had not changed. Their version of the ritual had not changed up to that point. So the this fellow who was in his late 80s, early 90s, his name was Klaus Scheer, a good Russian name, obviously. His son David and he got together and decided they wanted to try to revive the order, not from a we're going to make this thing happen again and be a big national body, but rather to put on the degree for charity. Fellows in Portland are a very charitable group and do a lot of great work in that community. So they banded together, got a bunch of guys and gals together, because the Odd Fellows now admit women and they wanted the degree to be open to everybody, and put on the degree in April of 2015. They made some slight changes to the original ritual to wash out some of the things that perhaps were okay in the 1890s but would not be looked upon favorably today, and adjust it so that women would be allowed. And they did this degree in 2015, and I drugged myself out to Portland and saw the degree and had a really great time with these guys for a couple of days. And upon returning to the East Coast, said, hey, we've got to share this degree just because of the interesting history and kind of the crazy nature of the degree, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we started doing the degree here locally. I wrangled guys like Jason and some other folks that were near me in, and we've been using it as a charity fundraiser more than anything. If somebody wants to have the degree put on, we'll go out and do it as long as they donate the proceeds to a 501c3 of some sort. So we've done it for a dyslexia center in the Northern Jurisdiction, the local DMLA chapter, and now most recently at Masonic Week, we raised money for the Almoners Fund of the Northern Masonic Jurisdiction.
Wow. So, after you saw the degrees, Seth, I think your title now is what for the Eastern Province?
It's a absolutely 100% made-up title that I gave myself called Imperial Governor.
Excellent. That empowers you to do what?
So I keep in contact with the group out of Oregon. They really have no desire to, again, have a national body of any sort, and they kind of look at the titles as a fun thing, and whatever we do with them, they're okay with. Their goal is really just to see the degree done in more places and to raise more money for charity. So they kind of handed me the keys and said, make this happen on the East Coast wherever you can make it happen. And that's what I've spent the last couple of years trying to do.
All right. My next question, they were for Jason Lewis. How long have you been in the Noble Order of the Muscovites, and how many of these degrees have you put on?
So I've done 2 of the 3 that we've done in total. I couldn't make the one in, I believe, Reading that was done. But charter member with most of in fact, everybody that was there that was at AMD Week. There's a lot of DMLA advisors on the team. Seth kind of pulled from a DMLA circle, and so I was there for the very first one in Elizabethtown, and here we are.
Was the Masonic Week one the largest number of folks you've initiated at one time?
It was for us on the East Coast. I think they might have done one out on the West Coast that was around 70. We took in 63 at Masonic Week. So yeah, that was our biggest class, and we all conferred afterwards, and we all agreed probably our most successful in terms of the ritual and the gags that we put into it.
Do the gags actually change?
We actually, the first time we did it, we had different gags, and I will say the guys out in Oregon do something entirely different than what we do. Because they were working in a big lodge room space, whereas we're more of kind of being on the road when we do this. But we like the idea of the gags, for those who are listening, is really just a tournament of test of mettle and skill. So we have an archery gag, a sword fighting gag, and a gag that involves you trying to chase down a bear.
And Mike Hambrecht and I may have been involved in the sword fighting gag.
Yeah, that was fun.
And there is a lot of ad-libbing and jokes that happen on the fly, but when we let you guys into the room, we shut the doors on you, and that was an example that wasn't planned. That happened on the fly. The inner guard and I just looked at each other and were on the same page and shut the doors. But there was a lot of stuff happening in that degree that I had no idea was going to happen.
I have to say, it was absolutely hilarious.
In case you figured out by now, Jason, Hammy, and I, being there at Masonic, had the good pleasure of joining the Noble Order of Muscovites with Jason and Seth as part of the few participants and leading the degree. So we were the guinea pigs, and I wanted to now switch over to Jason and Mike without violating your obligation. What did you think of the degree?
It was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed myself being in one of the exemplars, just like Jason. And man, there was 4 exemplars. It was a lot of fun, especially to watch the others have to do their challenges as well. I mean, and the whole Russian side to it. Oh, that it just makes it even more fun. It's absolutely wonderful. I would love to do that again and actually be a part of that somehow. That is just totally cool.
Yeah, it was really funny, really hilarious. I think John and I talked afterward and we're like, you know what, that was a lot better than we anticipated.
Yeah, so,
just because we didn't have any.
So RJ and I aren't shy of saying we really enjoy the more serious part of Masonry, and I can't say I've been involved in any other orders or pendant bodies that are there purely for mirth and merriment. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little like, I was kind of going with peer pressure, saying, hey, I'll go ride this wave. Everyone else is going to filling out the Eventbrite page. Maybe I'll, and I know Seth, and so I thought, why not? I'll go along for the ride, and I had a good time. And everything did. See, what I was afraid of is that it was going to be artificial, saccharine kind of humor, just like, oh, it was kind of made up, forced humor, forced fun. But you could tell everybody there had a good time. We're serious about, doing it right, but having a good time, making sure everyone was involved, making sure that everybody had a good time. It didn't seem fake. And so, again, kudos to your degree team, Seth and Jason, because you guys did a good job. And so you converted me, and I had a good time, and glad to say that that's kind of my first.
The interesting thing about the degree as a whole, and Jason will appreciate this as a student of that Eastern European history and Russia in particular. The original 1893 degree, which I have a copy of, the big joke in it was that they would plant a person amongst the candidates who would attempt to assassinate the leader, and he was actually directed to set off a flashbang grenade in the lodge room in front of the leader.
What?
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, that was a prop that was supposed to be done, and obviously for safety reasons, we don't do that sort of thing anymore.
That would be so fun.
Sign me up.
Yeah, so
Royal Arts degree.
It was a very prescient degree because later you have Archduke Ferdinand being assassinated by essentially a grenade, and then of course being shot. So it was this idea that in 1893 the Americans knew the Eastern European group was going to get overthrown by assassination and wrote a degree about it 30 years before it actually happened.
So I've got a couple questions. I wasn't there. Number one.
That's not a question.
Was there vodka?
There was vermouth.
Been.
Actually, there was vermouth. I think it must have been the inner guard who was tying me up was taking swigs of vermouth for a side gag.
Which he hid under his hat.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the rest of the cast was liberally plied with alcohol on the way.
Yes, this is true.
Perfect. So second question is a little bit more serious. And if you guys want to avoid this, that's fine too. But my question is, you went into Masonic Week and put on a degree where women were able to be there in the degree. Knowing the vehement arguing that goes on in every group, the second anybody even says, hey, there's women Freemasons places, or there's women in a degree, or whatever, it's one thing to read that vitriol on screen or whatever, but did you get any of that in person?
Yeah, I think we were invited to do this at Masonic Week, almost because we allow women, because it gave an opportunity for an event that the men and their wives could go to all together. And we did pick up some women into that group. Not a lot, but some. I had some conversations with some brothers who were not entirely pleased with the idea of the fact that we were doing this at Masonic Week. But the degree wasn't for them. It wasn't something that they would have found enjoyable anyways. And the fact that we picked up 63 people who weren't doing anything else on a Saturday afternoon and weren't going to the Order of Knights Preceptor to come raise a little bit of money for a good cause, I think speaks to the fact that there was at least some desire for an event like that during the week.
Well, also, I think what's kind of cool is the fact that, how many times have you gotten the ladies programming for an event that you're going to, and it sucks?
No, they had a ladies' tea.
That
was like the other ladies event in Masonic Week.
Literally, Jason, I almost just dropped the longest F-bomb. I forgot I was on the air, right?
It was a kid's show.
Yeah.
So shopping bus or something too.
I think that's kind of cool, right? So you did something that is a degree which is similar to Masonry, right? We have degrees, but the ladies could come, and it was a charity deal. And you know what? For the people that can't go to anything, give them something. I think that's kind of neat. You guys were almost fulfilling a need.
So, Seth, what are the prerequisites for getting this degree? There are a couple little stipulations. What are they?
Yeah, the stipulations that the group out of Oregon has always put on us was that they want to see you involved in some kind of organization that helps the community. And that can be very broadly defined. So, if you're in Rotary or Kiwanis or somehow serving your community in some way, they're interested. Being a part of a credit union, not so much. But serving on the PTO, whatever it is, if you're involved in your community, they're happy to put on the degree and take you in and raise money for whatever cause that may be.
Now, you also had to be, I'm sorry if I missed this, but part of a fraternal order or the...
Yeah, we count the fraternal orders into the community group thing. That's an easy way to put it. But I know the guys out in Oregon went to a Rotary Club meeting on a Friday afternoon and did the degree.
There you go.
They actually just initiated 3 community theater troupes that they're looking to put on the degree in the future, because let's get community theater people involved in doing a degree. There's a novel idea.
Yeah, that's a win.
That's a win-win for sure.
So, Seth, what can you tell me a little bit about the symbolism of the Noble Order of Muscovites? So I've got the lapel pin here that you all gave everyone and made everybody wear prior to the degree, and I'm trying to get my camera to focus on it. There we go. So I see we've got the polar bear with the Mu, the red lamp, and then the gold fee.
Yep.
What does this all entail?
I'm going to give you an answer that's going to make you laugh, and that is we really don't know. The Mu is obviously a reference to Muscovites. We know that. We believe the lamp is something related to knowledge, but we have no idea why the fee is there. There's not a lot of written history internally about this organization. There's a lot of newspaper articles. I have a couple of distinct publications that they put out themselves. They're pretty rare to come by. But I've never found a written down, here's what our symbol means.
Lost to the ravages of history.
Yeah, it's not like you're like the Grand Imperial Governor or anything. You wouldn't know.
A couple different versions of the symbol as it's come down through time. There's a version of it that's very much like the one that Jason showed, but has a polar bear on either side with a bar in the middle that says IOM on it.
Yeah, that's the old Imperial Order.
Yeah,
symbol,
so
right?
There's a lot of research and questions left to be uncovered. There's not a lot of physical remnants of this group outside of the fezzes, and even then, I want to say we probably know the location of about a dozen fezzes, and I have 3 or 4 of them. A guy in New Mexico has a couple, and the Oregon group have some other old ones. I have the only known existing lapel pin from that period. And I got a cache of items from a guy in Minnesota that had a couple of other Muscovites pieces in them, but that's pretty much it. Jewelry or things. And not for they had 20, 30,000 members, especially in the upper Midwest, which is not a densely populated area. You think Kremlin Sodak, which was the big group in South Dakota, had 3,000 members in South Dakota in 1920. That's a lot of people in South Dakota in 1920, but there's just not a lot of remaining ephemera from this group.
So that leads me to my next question. Being the data guy, how many estimated members of the Noble Order of Muscovites are there today in 2017, 2018?
Between the classes we've done on the East Coast, I'm going to estimate we've probably brought in 120 or so people, maybe up to 130. The folks out in Oregon have been a bit busier than us. They've probably brought in a couple hundred. So 300, 350 people have seen the revived version of the degree. And we're always looking to travel and do it some more. And if somebody like Mike Hambrecht wants to prop up a Kremlin in his hometown and try to get some guys to put it together, we're open to that. Because we're here to carry on the spirit of fraternalism and the idea that fraternal groups can be fun and enjoyable and to raise a little bit of money along the way.
All right. Hold on. $1 million question. You brought in all these guys, Seth.
Yep.
How many have you lost to non-payment of dues?
You only have to pay a life membership fee once, so I'm proud to say 0.
Holy
That's half the marketing. There's no dues and no meetings.
Best retention across any fraternal order.
Their NPD rate is 0.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What about per capita? There's got to be per capita, right? You guys got to pay for you guys to get around to.
We ask them we take our expenses out of the fees that are initially charged. So once expenses are paid, everything goes to charity. So there is essentially $0 yearly per capita.
What? That's incredible. That's really cool, actually. Nice.
And better yet, they actually have really cool costumes too.
Yeah, so shout out on the costumes. All of the costumes our cast wear were handmade. We have a gal who lives just outside of Philadelphia. Shout out to Deanna. I highly doubt she's listening, but in case she ever does. She is a costumer for Renaissance fairs and has a degree in fashion. And we went to her and said, we'd love to have costumes for this. That's kind of a medieval degree. And she handmade everybody's costumes. And we paid for her to do that out of our own pockets.
Nice.
Including my shiny muumuu.
The only exception I will say to that is the big silly hats that Jason and our other guard wear, and their axes were originally part of a marching unit for another fraternal body, and we kind of co-opted them for this because they just fit so well for the degree.
I thought I was joining the Loyal Order of the Water Buffalo when I first.
When I went to the website, that's the first thing I thought, literally.
Those hats are amazing.
Yeah, I'll have to dig it up. Last year at Grand Lodge Sessions, Bull Garlington, local author and Mason, his lodge wore the blue water buffalo horn hats to Grand Lodge Sessions.
So one of our local Oddfellows lodges is in a parade every year in small town Pennsylvania, and their float last year was the Water Buffaloes Lodge, and all their officers dressed up in the Flintstones garb and wore those hats and built a Water Buffaloes float, and that's what their parade float was for their Oddfellows Lodge.
That sounds
So
amazing.
Good. That's awesome.
All right. Is there anything we're missing or any other questions that...
I will say, I'll give you one other good piece of history. This is one of my favorite parts of the Muscovites, also one of the sad parts, unfortunately. As they were closing in 1934, they were forced to auction off all of their stuff. There's actually we have the newspaper records that show, here's all the things that are auctioning off. Band costumes, fezzes, the stuff you'd expect from a lodge of that era, spittoons. But they also very specifically list that they have to auction off the prized possession of the Muscovites, which was their live bear named Babe. It was not uncommon for a Kremlin to have a live bear, and we've got pictures of some Kremlin's bears. Certainly nowadays that would be looked upon with suspicion and contempt because we don't keep animals that way anymore. But that was their thing. Every Kremlin had a bear. We just use a stuffed one on the wall.
Wow. That's crazy. Wow. Okay. I want to go over one last time to Jason Lewis. Been a little quiet in this episode. Anything else you want to add that Seth?
Well, Seth certainly is the historian. I'm just I'm just the outer guard that was instructed to yell as loud as I could. But it's a lot of fun. Seth's done a great job getting guys together that are really enthused about it. And what Seth didn't mention is that he is lucky enough to do this with his wife. So it's keeping it in the family, and we enjoy doing it. So, like Seth said, if you're interested in having us come to you and perform this degree, we are more than happy to do that.
And you got to talk about the party bus too.
So the party bus, one of our, I believe that he is the inspector, right, Seth?
He is the Noble Inspector.
He's the Noble Inspector. He drives for a living, so he was able to borrow a party bus, and we just had to pay the expenses to fill it up with gas. So we came down in the party bus, and it was loaded with mimosas, and so we were loaded with mimosas by the time we got there. It was a good time.
I'm going to assume part of the success of the degree was due to the party bus.
The party bus was a lot of fun. Now, Seth and a few others were already down there for the rest of the week, but 5 of us were loaded up in the bus.
This has been fantastic. I want to again thank our guest host tonight, and I'm going to start with you guys so we can do our last round of shameless plugs and final thoughts. So if you have any other podcasts, some better than Whence Came You, that you want to plug, feel free to go ahead, starting with Jason Lewis.
Well, of course, you can listen to Masonic Lite Podcast, the co-host there, and Seth is our co-contributor. And then also Lodge 43 in Lancaster, PA. Mike, much like you, we don't have an actual lodge education officer, but we have a education committee in Pennsylvania, and I'm the chair of our education committee. And our education committee will be hosting John and Jason Richards March 3rd in Lancaster, PA, 213 West Chestnut Street. You can find that on Eventbrite and on Facebook. Lodge 43, Masonic Lite, we've all shared it, but we are really looking forward to having you guys come down. And then we also have Christopher Rodkey, who's local and a member of the Lodge Research up here and a few other research groups. So March 3rd, please register if you want to come. We are really looking forward to having you guys in town. So that's all I got.
Can't wait to see you then. Seth.
I'll plug 2 things. In addition to Masonic Lite Podcast contributor, the thing I plug on there often is a little charity I work with called the J.H. Rathbone Museum out of Lafayette, Indiana. The Rathbone Museum seeks to preserve and study fraternal history, specifically non-Masonic fraternal history. So while Freemasons have all these wonderful museums and research societies, many other fraternal groups were not so lucky and find that their items are dumped into dumpsters and shipped off. So we work to preserve the history of non-Masonic fraternal groups and keep them alive. So check us out and come visit us. And I'll plug an event. We just announced yesterday, our local AMD Council, Junto number 537 in Elizabethtown, is hosting the first Eastern Pennsylvania AMD in-gathering on August 10th. I believe 11th. It's the 10th, 11th, thank you. August 11th in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, which is just a little north of Lancaster. We have 2 really interesting speakers, one of which who's not been at a Masonic function in a long time. He is Dr. William Croft, who is the Supreme Grand Master of the Fraternitas Rosicrucius, which is the Rosicrucian group that works out of Quakertown. He is not a Mason, but an expert in Rosicrucianism and certainly their brand of Rosicrucianism, as well as Dr. Ted Schick, who's the chair of the philosophy department at Muhlenberg University outside of Allentown, speaking on Leibniz, the Kabbalah, and its tie to fraternalism. So certainly an interesting day. Anybody is welcome to come to the morning sessions. They're open to Master Masons or anybody who'd like to hear them. The afternoon, we'll be conferring 2 AMD degrees for the AMD members present, St. Lawrence the Martyr and the Order of the Secret Monitor. There's an Eventbrite page for that if you're friends with me, or it's getting shared out there for all of the AMD folks. Only 50 seats, and we've sold 18 of them, so sign up soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. Let's go over to Robert Johnson, the only one who hasn't seen this degree.
Yeah, it sounded amazing. Like, maybe if I ever get out to Masonic Week, I'll make that happen. I've actually been really close to going once. Last year, I actually bought a train ticket, and then literally like 40 minutes later, I refunded it. So I'm hoping to get out there at some point and check everything out. Maybe I can join the Order of Muscovites. We'll see. Amazing episode as usual. I loved hearing about the history of this kind of stuff. I really enjoy the history of fraternalism within the United States as well. Of course, not as well versed as our brother Seth here, who is just about, you've got some title in everything.
I'm just a nerd.
It's pretty amazing. So good on you, and really stoked that your wife has taken a cool part in that also. I think a lot of ladies, if they could do something fun and have a mission like that, they'd probably join. I think that's cool. If you enjoy Masonic Podcast, you can listen to my program, which is WCY, or Whence Came You, Sunday nights, 9:30. And presentation schedule. I think March 16th, I'll be in New York. That's the first one that's coming up. That's kind of, you'll be able to go to. The other ones are some Skype presentations I've got going on. And then we've got a whole bunch of stuff happening in April. So April 12th, 13th, and 14th. And of course, the MasonicCon 2018 out at Ezekiel Bates, April 28th. There's going to be some pretty awesome stuff, including a Star Wars panel. And I will be on that panel, as well as Mike Jarzabek and one of my I don't even know. Is it right to call someone your mentor if you haven't asked them to be a mentor? All right. Well, he's a mentor, and you might not even know it. Greg Kaminsky. So he's going to be on that panel too, I think. So check that out. Make your way out there. It should be an amazing day.
And I'll be there too.
Oh yeah, John's going to be there.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
And John. And the rest. Thank you, Robert. Moving on. Mike Hambrecht, Mike the Intern.
Yeah, and I really, really, truly enjoyed this degree. It was a lot of fun to partake and watch. And yes, Seth, I am willing to prop up as a czar and see what I can figure out here about getting some guys together to try and do a Kremlin here. Probably have to have you guys come out and do a degree just to show some people, just to get it going, and we'll raise some money for something really cool around here too.
Awesome.
So. But maybe even some guys in the Elks that I know.
There you go.
since I have my father-in-law in that. So anyway, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I would do this again in a heartbeat, and I would even take part. So.
And Mike, Seth and I both share a hometown in common, which is just a few hours away from you. But we both grew up on the Great Lake of Erie in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah.
That's my flag. But maybe we can coordinate a trip home to make that happen.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so fun. That would be.
What's a V-ship? Don't give up V-ship.
Don't give up the ship.
Who is that?
Brig Niagara.
Who is the ship, and why are we giving him up?
Don't give up the Brig Niagara. That's where that came from.
I know. I'm being a terrible person.
As usual. Mr. Terrible Person. Final thoughts on Shameless Plugs. That would be you, Jason Richards.
Oh, I said terrible person, not charitable person. Wow. So Masonic Week was a blast. Had a great time. The Royal Order of Muscovites was hilarious and fantastic. I was drawn to it just because I've had pretty much a lifelong love of Russian history. And so when I heard about a degree that was supposedly had something to do with Imperial Russia. I basically said, shut up and take my money. And it was only after that Seth informed me that it was a bit of a farce. I was like, well, I've already paid my money, so I might as well just go. And I had a great time. I was trying to explain it to my wife, and I was basically like, it's an initiation ritual centered around life in Imperial Russia. And she looked at me with her beautiful blue eyes and said, that sounds like torture. Have fun. It was a good time. So Seth and Jason, thanks so much for coming down to our neck of the woods to put that on for us. I think a lot of people had fun. I know, John, Mike, and I definitely had a good time, and it looked like most of the people in the audience were having fun too.
I think the Jewish kids there for a conference of some sort also had a lot of fun watching us make asses out of ourselves in the hallway.
How can we not mention like the 1,000 like Jewish 12 and under kids that were just running around in all the like adjacent ballrooms to all the Masonic Week? You have these octogenarians in collars and aprons, and then you had like these little kids with yarmulkes on, just scattering the halls. Oh, and best part, during the Royal Ark Mariner degree, they're getting very serious, and they're talking about the obligation, and all of a sudden you can hear next door, I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night. Yeah, not the best.
Don't quit.
not the best scenario for a very solemn degree, but it happened.
But it was a good night, was it not?
Good night.
Apropos.
Timing. So, yeah, thank you again, Seth and Jason and the whole cast of the Noble Order of the Muscovites for coming down and doing that degree. For that, like I said, I had a better time than I was expecting, and so you guys certainly did a good job in putting the whole cast together, putting your hearts into it, really just having a good time, and it wasn't artificial. And I think that was the best part, is you were really there to have fun, smiles on your face, and certainly brought everyone in along with this ride. You certainly should be commended for having a very interactive degree that got everybody going. So thanks again for that. Had a lot of fun. It's my closest near shrine experience.
The missing shrine episode? What?
We're still working on the editing. I don't know. It's something with Libsyn or whoever our host is. So we're working on that. Stay tuned. But yes, this is the next best thing. So if you can, call up Seth Anthony or Jason Lewis, and they'll get you set up on the East Coast for your own very order of the Noble Order of Muscovites. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for searching for more light. See you next week. Thanks for watching.